Well, at least in one of the states, Michigan, that's one getting all the focus, right? People are voting, but they're doing so as their home values just keep falling. The S&P Case-Shiller Index showing that prices, particularly in the Detroit area, diving nearly 4% in December. That's compared to the month before, so it's not a year-over-year thing. This means sequentially things still suck, and that is the worst of the 20 cities that were surveyed. Different story in Arizona. Phoenix, one of only 2 cities with prices rising month over month, but keep in mind that Phoenix is still way, way down there. Across the nation, prices on average, again, falling to 2002 levels. I'm so glad I bought my home, I think, in 2007. I'm smart. Anyway, home sales went down right after Washington stopped doling out that $7,500 homebuyer tax credit. The same thing that's happening now with so-called durable goods orders. Those are items that last 3 years or more. They're diving just as the tax credit starts expiring. Businesses slashing spending on machinery and equipment by 4% last month. That's the biggest drop we've seen in 3 years. And Lizzie and I were talking about this. This is oftentimes a harbinger of things to come. Factory orders could go this way, capacity utilization, future hiring. Anyway, Johnny Honig says yet another government incentive that in the end hurts more than it helps. He's joined by the aforementioned Lizzie Wicket McDonald and Richard Benjamin. All right, so Jonathan, you think this is a classic case to take the punch bowl away? You just get punched.
Yeah, well, you get punched, Neil, and in reality, once again, it asserts itself. And unfortunately, we've been evading it now for the better part of 4 years, going back to the former president's stimulus checks, which he passed out. This economy has seen more and more government intervention, and whether it's cash for clunkers or the green energy spending, it's always met with destruction on the other side. That's why, despite the $1 trillion+ in spending, all we've gotten is anemic growth to show for it.
Lizzie, what do you make of this number? Because it didn't get much coverage today. And I don't want to extrapolate more out of this than is warranted. But it does worry me in that it could be a sign of coming attractions.
Yeah, and it could be. And it's a really important number that was ignored by the media. It was the worst showing in 3 years. And basically, it's what companies, manufacturers feel in terms of the confidence of what they're going to produce. And it is a harbinger for other economic activity, even though local, regional, Federal Reserve data shows manufacturing may be picking up. But when you see this number dropping so precipitously, you got to say to yourself, why? Were they pulling activity into the fourth quarter because they knew the government was going to basically take an axe to this basically break that they can get on making capital expenditures? And again, to Jonathan's point, the government cannot create purchasing power. It tried time and again with housing tax credits, and when those were removed, the double dip scare came about, that housing was crashing again, and also cash for clunkers. When that was removed, auto sales started to go down. It scared the bejesus out of people.
Let me bring Richard into this. Rich, do you give any credence to these guys?
Very much so. I think on the right, they often say government intervention, but all fiscal policy by definition is government intervention. The question becomes, on whose behalf are you going to intervene? Is it Wall Street, big banks?
Well, what do you make of the intervention thus far?
Well, the intervention we just talked about, I think that 4% drop is a temporary glitch, and we're very much hoping, experts are hoping, that things will resume in subsequent quarters.
But we'll have to see. I hope to look someday like my floor director. That's not going to happen. So I don't think that's realistic. I think this could be a preview of not so rosy things. You disagree? Rich.
I very much disagree. I think the dawn is breaking. People are more optimistic about the job picture, about their own financial health. As you reported recently, the stock picture is doing better. So we'll have to see.
That could change in a New York minute. Jonathan, what do you think of that?
Well, I think, Neil, that's the thing that's so disheartening about stimulus, is that you don't know if you can literally trust the numbers in front of your face. I remember back under the Bush administration, the ethanol stocks like Pacific Ethanol, PEIX, were soaring. But, of course, once that intervention changed, the stocks all plummeted. Yeah. So when an economy is based on stimulus, you never know if you can trust it or not, because once the stimulus goes away, the whole house of cards falls.
Right, and it's basically taking water from one end of the swimming pool and putting it in the other end. The swimming pool, and by the way, the president's corporate tax reform is going to do away with this.
Well, if you do that, it doesn't change anything.
It doesn't change anything.
See, I figured that out.
Oh, aren't you so smart? But the issue is the president's own corporate tax reform will do away with what is going to help manufacturers in an effort to flatten the code. You got to wonder how the economy is going to respond to that reform.
All right, guys, thank you very much. In the meantime, Dow 13,000 finally here.